Okay, let me share slides. Welcome back to Anna Kirfa. Some people on this call got some very special directions. So we'll see what happens during this session. Okay, welcome back. I can't believe, where is the term gone? I don't know if it's just me. Maybe you guys feel like this is the longest term of your life, but I woke up this morning and I was like, I can't believe it's already week 9. We're 3/4. There's only 12 simulations. We are 3/4 of the way through all of our simulations. So we are nearing the end. So when I talk about geopolitics, what that essentially means, it's the study of geography and the study of political science. So historically, when we think of geography, what we're really thinking about is topography and physical geography. But in the last 20 years, there has been a turn in the field of geography to start studying things like what we call human geography. So if you combine, which is like the study of populations, and you combine that with politics, you get geopolitics, and we're looking at the interaction between geography and space and natural resources and political phenomenon. It is such a cool subfield. I love geopolitics. It is so rad. So reminder of our agenda today. You know, I kept waffling on whether or not every group should speak every Wednesday, but we're 3/4 of the way through. As long as everybody follows, you know, like the 5-minute or the 3 to 5 minute time frame, I think there's time for all political parties to speak. So I didn't put it on under group statements, but international foreign interests, please feel free to make a statement today. So today we'll just have all parties speak, because then if not, I have to pay attention to which parties got skipped and which parties didn't. As a reminder, Left Party is in power, and Teely Media is the reigning media house, but who knows what Darcy is bringing today. That could change. So in Anna Kirfa, let me go through the outcomes of your voting last week. So as a reminder, the Left Party was the first week that one of the parties really heavily criticized the other party, which is actually more realistic form of politics. And the Left Party openly supported placing TVET graduates in local businesses and in the gold mining sector. And they wanted to replace the spies that had been used for security with Rafiki land. And we had some really good statements, in particular from Henry and Israel and the general population. So that's what's going on. So the basic thing is Anna Kirfa is on the brink of becoming a gold behemoth in Africa. Maybe it will overtake Ghana, or even Ghana's the country I think of as having the most gold. It could even overtake Ghana as a gold producer. Who knows? Tanzania has a lot of gold too. Okay, so ruling parties, Left Party, GDP has gone up. In general, if you invest in a natural resource as heavily as Anna Kirfa has, GDP is bound to go up. Now, remember, GDP can go up and other things can go wrong. So in this case, GDP has gone up, but debt levels have also gone up, which typically means a country is making tons of money and not using that money to pay off their debt. Just like a greedy person who takes up all their money, but doesn't pay off their own personal loans. A country can do that too. I had absolute poverty go down a little bit with the idea that rural populations would obtain jobs in mining, and that TVET programs would do a lot to lower rural poverty rates. Unemployment, I had go No, that should, sorry, that should say 15% up. I just have the arrow going the wrong way. It's 15, sorry, unemployment is down, employment is up 15%. That's right, sorry, I misread it. And the reason I wanted to do this is I'm just going to make a statement. Natural resources are actually a terrible way to create jobs in a developing country. It is a myth that natural resource extraction really helps unemployment. And there's a lot of evidence that shows that certain natural resources, specifically oil, which doesn't require a lot of people to pull out of the ground, actually lower employment rates. There's more unemployed people sometimes. So in this case, I decided to have unemployment go down a little bit because gold mining does take more labor than, say, oil. And a knock-on job or a knock-on effects is a person who gets a job as a secondary effect of the primary industry. So for example, all of the people who cook and sell food to gold miners, all the moto drivers who give gold miners a ride to work, all the people who are vendors for hard hats that gold miners wear underground, all the people who sell tools to the gold miners, those are considered knock-on effects or knock-on jobs, secondary jobs. Gini coefficient, I had it mostly stay the same because theoretically you have all these new people who graduated TVET programs and now work in mining, but natural resources again are a terrible way to try to redistribute wealth. And in most countries, as we know from the resource curse, natural resources actually create a bigger gap between the rich and the poor, because it tends to be the rich people, the top 1% that have the money to invest in natural resources, and they get all the money. Debt is definitely going to go up because there's a stalled railroad project, and it takes a lot of money to create gold infrastructure or any natural resource infrastructure. I had the literacy rate vaguely kind of go up. It hasn't gone up a lot or as much as in recent weeks, with the idea that, like, if you graduated a TVET program, you probably meet basic criteria for quote unquote literacy. Of course, that's just kind of like a made up standard. Like, how do you define what's literate? If somebody can read a sentence, a paragraph, a page, a book, right? But in general, natural resource extraction isn't an industry that requires a ton of people to be highly literate. So I didn't want to make literacy go up that much. Life expectancy, mostly the same. In general, across the world, life expectancy is going up, but I wanted to mitigate that with the idea that economic migration in mass tends to separate people from sources of healthcare, and it tends to be difficult on the body. And when you, like, for example, when you have like worker camps or refugee camps, health outcomes tend to be poorer if health infrastructure is not already existing and waiting to take in all these new workers. So we can assume that if a bunch of new people move around a gold mine, the local health clinic is probably not having the capacity to take in thousands of new workers. And we can assume maybe if they're a good company, they would have a company health clinic, but probably not. Top news agency, Teely Media. By the way, this week, insider information, I hope it blows up during the media session. And we can assume that union membership goes down because in general, natural resource industries do not permit unionization, and they're not conducive to unionization. Actually, okay, I'm gonna make a statement. In Africa, I've never heard of an oil workers union. There are definitely mineral extraction unions in many African countries, but they tend to take the form of like starting early as a cooperative, like a horizontal business model in which everybody gets together and votes and is an equal stakeholder, and it's not like a foreign company. In Anakirfa, The gold extraction model is foreign corporations, and the chance of a foreign company allowing unionization in their workers I almost can't even imagine it. It would be so unusual. So with that, I had union membership go down. And also we can assume that organic local union membership, which tends to be in like construction or teachers or things like that, you can assume that, say, like construction workers or other manual laborers who would have been a member of a union before have now moved into gold mining, and so they would lose their union membership. Okay, any clarifications, questions? Questions about reading, questions about videos, questions about life?
I have one. I think I guess it's just more of a perspective question. I think this week more than the other weeks, I was personally struggling to connect. Well, I understood the actual theory and the videos, and then I'm just struggling how I connect geopolitics to the current group I'm in, which is domestic business. So I think just maybe a general question that I wanted to know is that, like, in the case of a simulation, how would your personal what your personal process to approaching a simulation be like in cases like those?
Sorry, so you're asking if I was a member of domestic business, what would I do?
Or a member of anything really, and then trying to connect what we read, what we saw, and what the simulation is.
Cool. So the simulation is all about incentives, Boulay. So what everybody should ask primarily is, one, how does this affect my income? And then, because fundamentally, even when you think about like, how does this impact my freedom, or how does this impact my whatever other thing that we think is not economic, it really does come down typically always to economics. So for you, you're a member of the domestic business party. So when you're thinking about the scenario for today, you should say, how could a rising gold sector in Anakerfa impact my income and the status of domestic business? And you could have thought a couple of things. You can say, oh, maybe I'm a domestic business that invests in the gold sector, and so I want to support gold because it's going to make me rich, and being rich translates into political power. Or you might think to yourself, oh, but if foreign companies are the ones owning the gold mines, maybe gold mining is bad for me, because we also know that we call it a mono economy. Emphasis on one commodity or one natural resource makes other commodities atrophy or wither. So Boulay, maybe you believe that foreign companies coming in and taking a bunch of gold is bad for you because you own a bunch of domestic businesses, like restaurants and selling shoes or things that are totally unrelated to gold. And maybe you don't want other people, foreigners, getting rich off of gold because that doesn't benefit you. So then you can have an anti-gold stance, and you could justify either of those answers. So everyone in a simulation always should be thinking like about your individual economic incentives, and then you want to think about short-term versus long-term. So then, Boulay, you could say to yourself, oh, although I don't own a gold mine and foreigners are making money off of the gold, maybe if we mine gold now and I have a private company that builds railroads, and I think the gold could be transported on my railroad in a few years, maybe I want to support gold now, even though I won't benefit this week, because I think 4 years from now, next week, I could benefit from the gold. Does that make sense? So individual versus collective, and short-term versus long-term. Was that helpful?
Oh, yes, it was. Sorry, I typed in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. And Quentin.
Thank you. Sorry. So given that, as you said, Anakerpa seems to be a really okay, a leading gold exporter, right? Right. So gold reserves and all that. So first thing to clarify, would you say that it's a leading gold reserve, I guess, and exporter within Southern Africa, like the region we're based?
Well, so 4 years is not a long time to be like a gold mecca. So what I would describe Anakirfa, because it's right, Ghana's been exporting gold since the British were there, right? So I would say in relatively, Anakirfa is a promising and growing regional gold exporter within Southern Africa. It's not like an African titan by any means, but you can consider it a growing market that started as medium and is going above medium in terms of its exports of gold. So I would, if it's on a chart, it's like whoosh, going up very fast recently. Does that help?
Okay, makes sense, makes sense. And okay, just to kind of follow up, if you were to say like top 10, top 20, where would you think it ranks? And this ties into my next question.
Anakirfa is the number, let's see, 54. Anakirfa is the number 8, 9, or 10. Let's say number 9 gold exporter in Africa in 2022. But with current growth, it is projected to become the number 5 exporter in the next 5 years. How's that?
Right. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So last question. Would it be possible, let's say if we were the number 1 gold exporter, would it be possible to leverage that to ensure that our currency, or I guess Anakirfa's currency, is the reserve currency when it comes to all like gold transactions within the Southern African region, assuming it was number 1?
That's a tough question. That's a good idea. I'm going to be honest, and I can't imagine any African country, no matter how strong its economy, ever having that much power, because even today, Nigeria doesn't have that power, even with all of its oil. In fact, no major natural resource economy in Africa has ever had that much power. And actually, what would statistically be more, or I should say historically be more likely, is countries that are in this position they typically tie their currency to a foreign currency. So like when Ecuador started exporting a bunch of oil, it tied its currency to the US dollar. So it wasn't trying to make its currency the de facto currency in South America. It did the opposite. And that was actually really effective at ensuring like economic stability. Does that answer your question? So what I would say is being the number 1 gold exporter kind of lets Anakirfa do whatever it wants in the region, but not to that extent, probably.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Cool. Good question. Good thinking. Deborah, sure. So Deborah, you want me just to expound a little bit on the relationship between labor unions and like natural resource economies? Is that what you need, Deborah? Cool. Okay. So in general, labor unions tend to flourish in areas or situations in urban areas where lots of workers live and work close to each other and are in close physical proximity in order to share information, network, and have union meetings. As a whole, labor unions tend to not typically be wildly powerful in rural areas. That's point number 1 about like natural resource extraction. Natural resource extraction is always in rural areas. So part of it is an issue of population density. Second of all, this is like a general pattern. African countries that allow foreign companies to operate in its country part of the way they bring them in usually is by helping guarantee that the local African workers will not unionize. So remember, a private company does not want a union. A private company wants its workers beleaguered and weak and not strong enough to fight for anything, right? So I can't think of an example in which a foreign company would be willing to invest in an African industry if that African country didn't do something or give some sort of guarantee to help make sure that unionization was not a threat to the foreign company operating. That's number one. Number two, that was number two. Number three, historically, unionization is not very powerful or common in a growing baby industry because you have not had decades of labor rights violations and resentment and ill will that it takes to get workers to organize. For workers to organize, usually it's in sectors where they've been working for decades and decades and decades, and there's enough time passed that workers are aggrieved. So if gold is just now booming in the last, 4 to 5 years in Anakirfa, people are still thrilled about this new income. They're excited. Like imagine like an African oil country, like in the 1960s, still optimistic, still happy. You would need to wait maybe 20 years for workers to get disappointed for them to even want to unionize. So Anakirfa is not a place where gold workers would be unionizing, at least not yet. Is that helpful, Deborah? I hope so. Cool. Okay. Yes and yes, I will take that. Okay. Any other questions? Cool. All right, a repeat of this scenario. The elected left party invested heavily in TVET graduates. I don't need to read, everybody knows how to read. So I'll just sum it up. Because of public demand, I think it was Israel, Henry spoke for it, I think it was Israel who proposed that there be a memorandum of understanding with foreign gold companies, and it was agreed that 50% of workers must be Anakirfan. And my next sentence is actually pretty cool. The security systems developed for protecting mines have traveled well to the border and for now quelled violence at the Rafiki border. So there is also a theory in political science that when you create security apparatus, security guards and security technology and security processes and all the things that you need to keep a private space safe, like a gold mine, you can take that same security technology and you can move it to the military, or vice versa. There's a lot of people who show that military advancements and military processes travel really well to private security. So in Anakirfa, I'm saying all these private gold companies invested in security to make sure people didn't steal and blow up their gold mines. And then that translated really well to creating peace all across the country. Anakirfa is now a leading unrefined gold exporter. To Quentin's point, let's say in the region. It's not like dominating yet, but it's moving up. However, this is very expensive to put Anakirfa in this position. It has a lot of foreign debt, mostly because it was trying to build a railroad line to help move its gold to nearby ports. So currently more than half of all tax income is going towards just repaying loans. And recently Anakirfa has been unable to repay a development loan given by the WB to finance the railroad that would move gold to the nearest port. So my idea was I just think about how, say, like Rwanda and Burundi are so dependent on like ports in Tanzania and Kenya. Like think about how important Mombasa is to landlocked African countries being able to move their goods. I called it Amazi land for Rwandan students because it's the land with the water that has the ports, Amazi land. Amazi land's ports are able to move on all of Anakirfa's gold for export. This sparked panic among other debtors who were all demanding repayment of loans. It seems the average Anakirfan is happy with the low unemployment rate, but at the national level, there are external economic pressures. So in general, what this means for the left party and the right party and any optimistic potential future politicians is that the average voter is happy, but how sustainable is it if you have a massive debt and foreign countries are really mad at you for not paying them back? Okay, so the average voter is happy, but outside parties are not. So what does that mean? Okay, there we go. All right, let me open up the breakout rooms. For the next 10 minutes, you join your own group's breakout room to do some planning for how you want to make a proposal. And please join your own breakout room. Okay, very good. Welcome back from your breakout rooms. Left party, as the ruling party, would you like to take the floor first and give a 3 to 5 minute statement on current affairs in Anakirfa? What is your policy?
Sure, yes. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever you are. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
So, basing on the scenario that we have today, where we identify that this loan thing is basically on a national level, and we want to go about it in a way that we are not affecting any activities that are taking place in the country, because we saw that the unemployment rate is low, and then the GDP increased. So we don't want to basically, we want to solve this on a national level, but not by making sure that we're not affecting any of the member interests that could be affected, including the labor unions they might be affected by this, and other the general population as well, and all that. So first and foremost, we saw that basically that what we should do, because we saw that borrowing from abroad, it basically helped countries to go faster by financing productive investment, but then it can also be a caution, the impact of economic disruption. But if a country or a government accumulates debt beyond what is able to serve, so this debt crisis can basically erupt with potentially large economic and social costs. So one of the points that you should actually go with, it's basically to, either Anarchifa is going to utilize low interest rates to promote the economy and create tax-based revenues that are feasible, and ultimately decrease the national debt. And also, by also we can also Anarchifa is gonna also invest in domestic businesses, so they can basically, by giving them loans and then them repaying back, in order to increase but by also setting low interest rates, so that we can accumulate a large amount of money to also get rid of the debt and the loans. And we also be able to boost capital flows and remove obstacles to international commerce with a lower debt ratio, lowering international trade restriction, which will allow the capital inflows to increase and loan repayments to become more feasible. And one more last thing is, in order to ensure that debt are well managed to deal with potential shocks that a nation might face, we thought that we could use a tool of capital account management and the use of public development banks, and other institutions to try to direct national savings towards long-term productive investments. Yeah, I think basically that's how we're gonna deal with this.
Gracia, you used all the political economy vocabulary words. You were like a political economy textbook. Good. I loved all the concepts that you drew on. Can you or somebody else in the left party also put your bullet points in the chat to summarize what you just said?
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna
Okay.
do it right now.
Thank you, Gracia. And now right party.
Would you stop screen sharing so that I share my screen?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. I think you're enabled. Okay.
All right. Here are the right party's policies. We saw that the most issue was the economy, whereby the country was in many dates. And here are our policies. And the first one is to raise tax on the wealthiest organization, including those working in mines. And by raising tax to these wealthiest organizations in the country, we will have the benefits that will be linked to this policy. First of all, the government revenue will increase. And by this increase of government revenue, the government will get the money, or will have where to get an income to pay the debts that government has. Also, the policy will contribute to inequality reduction, economic inequality reduction, because this tax from wealthier companies will help those industries or companies, or even the households that get low income. Also, the policy will support local infant industries or organizations. It was the point that I was saying, that micro businesses and industries will be benefiting from imposing higher tax to rich organizations. We have a second policy, which is putting more investment in the public sector. And here we see the benefits linked to that policy. The economy, there will be economic growth, because in the public sector, there will be organizations that will be operating for government revenue. And there will be also employment opportunity in these government companies. People will get hired. There will be a provision of public utility services. When the government starts a company or a business, there will be a goal of providing facility to the public. And also there will be an increase of GDP. Here we found that the government should make an alliance, or should strengthen the partnership with private sector. And if the government and the private sector are working closely, the prosperity and the income will be realized. There will also be environmental benefits. The last policy will be tourism promotion. We thought that promoting tourism can be a solution to the economy problem in Akifa. And here are the benefits linked to the policy. The government revenue will increase. The tourism sector will create jobs. There will be international connections. Here, I mean, there will be tourists coming in the country, or there may be tourist companies from other countries, and they may come to work in the country. Investors attractions. Here, investors may be interested in coming to invest in tourism, because tourism will be bringing money, and many businesses will be liking to come and invest. There will also be environmental benefits, since tourism companies will need to attract tourists. They will need to protect the environment, or practice the policies that conserve the environment in order to attract all those tourists. I think it is all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. And just for clarification, when you say tourism, it sounds like when you're talking about the environment that you probably mean ecotourism, right? Is that specific? Do you mean ecotourism? Because some tourism is non-sustainable.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. I'm saying that it's true. You are saying you are true. You are right. It's
okay, great.
That's true.
No problem. Just want to clarify, because there's lots of forms of tourism that bring in a lot of money right now, but are non-sustainable and are going to be terrible in 20 years. Ecotourism is usually an example, just to clarify, of a form of tourism that doesn't bring in the immediate money right now, but lasts for many, many decades. And as everybody knows, Rwanda is a great example of ecotourism, but it's not the sort of boom tourism that happens typically overnight. It takes some time. Okay, thank you, Kelly. You had a RPPP PPT. How you like that acronym? Okay, good, thank you. If you can stop sharing, yeah. Okay, so parties, please type into the chat. There we go. Gracia, this is you. Okay, so the left party just put into the chat. This is the left party. And Tasha, Gracia renamed herself. Okay, let's get to the 3 minutes of each of the groups. Let's start with domestic business. Domestic business, you have the floor, 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay, hi everyone. I will just start by mentioning the main points, then Quentin will add some color. So the main focus of domestic business in Anakerfa is to build economic recovery and strength while capitalizing on the discovery of the gold resources. And so in alignment with this focus, our policy proposal consists of 3 main points. And the first is that in light of the debt crisis, we propose that the government undergo printing slightly more money to boost its recirculation within the economy. However, we understand that comes with great risk and must be done with the necessary regulation to prevent hyperinflation. The second point that we made is that we urge the government to ensure that the currency goes off the gold standard. This is to just ensure that the fluctuation of the country's currency and the value of gold are not pegged to one another. And this also means that we prioritize creating a standard price for gold, from which we can use the revenue to stimulate the economy. And then lastly, businesses and governments should and have to form a partnership in creating favorable policies for the production and the export of gold to other countries, because domestic business has a keen interest in maximizing the opportunity of of monopolizing on the gold that we have, which Quentin will now elaborate more about.
Yeah, okay, so I'll just add some meat to it. So with regards to first taking our currency off the gold standard, we understand that there's a lot of debt, right, that we need to pay off. And seems there doesn't seem to be a lot of alternatives. We do propose this in order to allow us to print more money, right? More money would allow us to pay off some of these debts and encourage more businesses locally. But in turn, we do suggest pegging our currency to the Chinese yuan. First, because the Chinese yuan is becoming the de facto world reserve currency, which means by nature of all the transactions that will happen, that will trickle down to our own currency. So we'll also benefit from that, right? It strengthens our currency, ensures that our transactions with other countries become cheaper, whilst ensuring that we're able to pay off some of our debts. We'd also issue corporate bonds out to the public, and this will be for building our own gold refinery. You'll notice a lot of the gold that's being exported or transported to Amaziland, all this is unrefined gold, but we do see an opportunity in refining our own gold and exporting that, right? That could be an alternative source of income. Yeah, so that's just to add on to it. If there's any other clarifications, feel free to ask questions.
Okay, Quentin, I'm going to put you on the spot, and you are going to need to think of a response right off the dot. So actually, China's currency is pegged already to the US dollar. I think China pegged its currency to the US dollar about 10 years ago. So how would you respond to that comment?
Okay, so that's a good observation. I would say that although China has pegged its currency to the US, they have been buying lots of reserves in gold in recent years. If you notice how much gold they've been buying since roughly 2000, especially 2008 up until now, they have been buying more and more gold to tie their currency back to the yuan. So I still feel confident in our decision to do so, because the US at some point will have to relinquish its number one superpower status to China. It's inevitable at this point. And China does seem to be preparing to break off from the currency in line with its Bretton Woods agreement. It does seem that it's about to break off its currency from tying off to the US. Does that answer
Quentin,
your question?
that is a great answer. I just honestly was Googling as you were talking, and China pegged its currency to the US dollar in 94, but it turns out that there's like a dual economy in China, and that China really is, it looks like, set to unpeg its currency from the US dollar. So domestic business is predicting that China's currency will become independent. And when that happens, it would like to peg the Anna Kirfin currency to China's. Does that make sense, Quentin?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Lane, just a quick one. When you say dual economy in China, what does that mean?
Sure. So there is the economies on the books, which is the amount that's recorded by the tax authority, the amount that's reported to the World Bank, the amount that is recorded by banks and typically reported to the international community. But in mega economies like China, India, even Nigeria, dual economy also means there's kind of like a separate economy that's more localized and tends to rely more on cash, relies more on trading, like domestically, relies more on local currency. And it's not the economy that's reported to the rest of the world. It's a lot of unrecorded and hidden economic transactions that aren't made public to the rest of the globe.
Wait, so the hidden part, is it illegal to do that?
That is a good question. And my answer to you is law is a social construct. And theoretically, it's not like illegal, like I'm going to take you to the International Court of Justice illegal. It's just considered bad practice. And it would be considered a violation of international economic treaties, right? So all of these economic agreements that all of the countries in the world have, they're really just based on paper, but there's no enforcement mechanism, right? So if China hides its dual economy, there's no world police that are going to go arrest Chinese politicians and put them in world jail, right? It's mostly about bad practice and being unethical and violating like economic treaties. But so when you say, is it illegal? My answer to you is it's in the gray area, but there's no enforcement mechanism.
So is that because it's China, or it's because it's a superpower, or
that's international law in general. So like when I used to teach like intro to international law, and the first thing I tell my students is the difference between domestic law and international law is that domestic laws have enforcement mechanisms. There's police and there's courts and there's jails, and you can be punished for behaving badly. In international law, the worst that would happen is like a country would put a sanction on you and say they're not going to trade with you, or they might like refuse to let your citizens enter. But those are all, they're kind of wishy-washy punishments, right? Like there's no world jail. So my answer to you is what I just described is a symptom of the weakness of international law. And the same, I mean, there's so many things about international law that the US does not follow. The US just doesn't engage in international law. It just refuses to acknowledge international law because it says it's a violation of sovereignty. So anytime a country hides certain economic activities like China or the US will always claim that it is within its sovereignty to manage its own economy as it wants within its own borders.
Okay.
Make sense? Cool. Good question.
All right, thanks.
Okay, very good. Thanks, domestic business. International interests.
Hello?
Yes, we hear you perfectly.
Yeah, so as foreign interest, we decided that one of the things we'll do is to kind of put a pause on giving out loans to Anakirifa. And then for us to be able to get back our investment, we'll work with the government to create a partnership or sign a contract so that we can operate or lead the operations in some of the industries like the railway until we are able to get back our investment, and then after we can transfer back the ownership of the railway, or I don't know what industry we decide on with the government, and then we can give them back the ownership. So that's what we agreed.
Okay, very nice. Foreign interest, good. I recorded that, but also type it into the chat. Good presentation. Labor union.
Yes, hello.
Yes,
So
we
as
hear
for
you
the-
perfectly.
Great. So as for the labor unions, we demand that the left party to integrate our membership in the memorandum of understanding with the foreign-owned gold mines. First, to ensure the protection of anarchy funds employed in the gold mines, the gold field mines, well as ensure the good standing of living, good working place, maintenance of employment for at least 50%, as it was said that at least 50% of the anarchy funds should be working on the gold field mines, and also ensure that the people working there have fair salaries. And also another policy that we wanted, we recommended to be implemented is that we wanted the government to increase briefly the taxes in order to get enough money to pay the loans that are pending, so that in the long run we don't fail to get other loans from the foreigners, which can be used to create more jobs in the country, well as spare some money to create jobs in the meantime when you're still also paying the loans that can be used to give anarchy funds jobs in different other sectors apart from simply just the natural resources sector. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Deborah, also put into the chat a quick bullet point summary of what you said. Good presentation. And anyone from the general population?
Hi, hope you can hear me.
Yes, perfectly.
So unfortunately for today, the general population did not make a statement. Yeah, so we didn't come up with a statement for today.
That's okay, Grace, because 9 times out of 10, the public doesn't actually weigh in on national policy. So you not having a response is actually a very good representation of typical voter apathy across the world. Okay, thank you for just telling me. Great, so now I will open up the breakout rooms again for about 15 minutes. Go wherever you want, say whatever you want, type whatever you want, liaise, do whatever you would like to get your incentives or your interests promoted. Okay, go to any breakout room you want for the next 15 minutes.
increased tax for the wealthy and foreign organizations and prompted the government to invest in the tourism sector. Domestic businesses taking the stage recommended 4 policies. The first is that Anna Kifra take its currency off the gold standard. 2, issue corporate bonds to build Anna Kifra's own gold refineries. 3, put more money to pay off foreign debts. And lastly, they want to work with the government to create favorable exporting policies. On the end of the labor unions, their main concern and demand is the reinstatement of labor unions in foreign mining companies. They believe that Anarchy-friendly employees will be more protected this way. This time around, the members of the general population chose to remain silent. That's all we have.
Very nice. Thank you so much. Now we got some good information. Darcy Media House, do you have any contributions to the public discussion on Anarchy politics?
Yes, good morning. I'm sorry, good afternoon. My bad. I hope you can hear me. So today I'm not going to be talking about different policies or any other thing, but what I'm going to do is to leak some emails that came across Darcy Media House, among others. Y'all can check the chat box. Those are emails that were leaked into my personal account, and I figured that I should share them with you so that you actually know what is going on. That is why this report today is titled "What's Happening Behind the Scenes." From what you can see there was a discussion whereby the domestic part the domestic part is trying to stop the construction of the railway. In discussion that I had with the left party, the Gracia told me straight up that they want the construction of the railway, which is yet some of his ministry is doing some corruption with domestic interests in order to stop the construction of the railway. So is the left party really knows what's going on in their administration? That's a question for today. The second one is foreign interest. Do you actually know what is happening? Do you know you all are focusing on collaborating with the government into getting the permission to control and oversee all the transactions and constructions that is taking place, especially in the railroad constructions. But do you really want that if the government doesn't really have the power about it, or if they're or if they are actually doing side deals with other interested parties and the general population and other parties involved? Do you actually agree with this? So this was today's media, and I hope you all have new information about this matter. Thank you.
Ooh, thank you so much for that presentation, Darcy. So the question is Darcy reliable? Can we believe what he said about a leaked email? I don't know. This is the decision that every consumer of news has to make. Okay, so now it is election time. I will open up the polls. And now that we've heard from everybody, you can cast your vote. So you can, left party is currently in power. You can bolster the incumbent advantage, or you can vote for the right party if you think that their RPP presentation was compelling, or if you don't like either of these parties and you want another option to vote for an independent candidate, to overthrow the government, or to have a military coup, or whatever you want, you can vote for other. And then, ooh, this is a close election for media houses. Oh my gosh, they're tied right now. This has never happened. This is so exciting. Ooh, this is a juicy election, y'all. I can't wait to screen share. Okay, everybody has voted. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh. Oh my God, no way. Okay, no way. This is awesome. This is awesome. I got to share the results. How do I share results? Are you ready? Runoff
Wow.
election, right party, left party, it's even. We got to do a runoff. Another time, let me figure out, this has never happened before. Like I've never had a tied outcome. And honestly, Darcy and Teely, the votes are so close that like, I almost want to do something with the media house. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. The system is not ready for your student democracy at work. I don't even know what to do. This has never happened. Okay, give me some time. I got to figure it out in the next couple days. I don't know what to do. We got to have a runoff. I'm not sure. Let me figure out what to do. Okay, so for now, there is no single ruling party, the right party, left party. I don't know, maybe we have a coalition. Let me figure this out. Right party, left party, you're awesome. Darcy, Teely, this is pretty close too. Let me think about this. Okay, thanks everybody. Today was a great, great simulation. We're ending 1 minute early, which has also never happened in the history of our class. Thank you all so much for being wonderful. Let me figure out what to do about this tie in the election. This is I don't know who the one person is who voted other. Whoever the one person is who voted other, you've created a conundrum for me, but maybe a good one. All right. Okay, thanks everybody. You're welcome to hop off. I will see you next Wednesday, next week. All right, thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye.